Hi, welcome to the Harvest Podcast, a missions podcast of Harmony Hill Baptist Church. This is a part of our limited series on the Niger, Africa mission trip. And today I'm joined with Ben Stokes and Miranda Rudd, and they played I think it's fair to say, a behind-the-scenes but very critical role in this entire story. And it's actually a perspective in which we got to see how God was moving and orchestrating things. We just had a unique perspective, and I think it'll be interesting for people to hear that. And so before we get too far in it, my name's Todd. I'm the lead pastor here at Harmony Hill. Share a little bit about what your role is here at the church, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, so my role here at the church is the Associate Pastor, and I oversee the ministry aspect of things on the Hill.
Very good.
So my role is the Assistant to Senior Leadership, and so I work alongside Pastors Todd and Ben and Barry Bennett.
Very good. All right, so some people may not know this, but Ben, you and your wife, Melissa, actually lived in Niger, were missionaries in Niger, and I'm just curious, from your perspective, what does it mean to you that we still have a partnership in Niger with the people that you worked with, and for you to know that we're sending teams like we sent this group of teenagers? And then if you could also describe what our current partnership is there in Niger.
Yeah, it does. It has a unique place in my heart, serving there for 2 years. Me and my wife as church planners, and before that, even Harmony Hill had adopted the Fulani people as a people group that they would be that they would sacrificially target and pursue and labor with the Fulani people, and that's what they did in sending me and Melissa. And so when we were there, we partnered with the IMB, and we were sent through Harmony Hill and First Baptist Arlington. And so it was a partnership there in our sending. And in my time there in Niger, and I was really blessed to really gain deep friendships with the locals there, the local believers, and people who are not believers. And so I had deep relationships there. We were blessed to be able to church plant alongside of those nationals. And so when we were there, we were, because of this church and Arlington, their prayers, their sacrificial giving, their sending teams, we saw people come to Christ. And this church, not only, behind us so much there, tons of grain was given while I was there. 2 wells were dug because of Harmony Hill's efforts. And there was countless other things, Bible projects. This church was instrumental in helping the New Testament be completed in Fulfulde, which is the language of the Fulani. And so I was there. When I was there, I got to go out into the village and read and test the scriptures, make sure people understood it, and help Wycliffe do that. And that was all backed to Harmony Hill had a big role in that. And so I was invested there personally, or me and my wife, and also Harmony Hill. And so when we were making that move back, I knew that I would be taking the role as a missions pastor here. And so obviously I worked to that end to help connect Harmony Hill even further with the work there. But to answer your question now, so we're about almost 11 years from that. To see us still sending teams, to see us still say, you know what, we're committed. We're going to do whatever it takes for these peoples that don't know who Christ is. We're going to keep sending. We're going to keep praying. We're going to keep laboring alongside of those believers, those national believers. And it's one of the joys of my life, knowing that when I left, that work, God's going to continue His work, but I would still, and Harmony Hill would still be able to be a part of that is one of the big joys of my life.
Amen. One of our partnerships there is with Grace Church, and that is sort of has an elder board of some national believers and one of our partners there, Mark Phillips. We've done an episode with Mark, but just in case people are only watching one or two of these, you knew Mark back when you were there, and so tell us a little bit about Mark, because he plays a critical role in this story.
Yeah, that's the joy of just in obedience going to the mission field is you're obviously going to meet new people. Mark is one of those guys, the whole Phillips family actually, that really took in my family when we arrived, and just played a huge role in mentoring me. And it was just, and Mark is one of those guys where you can sit back and watch him and just learn a lot. He doesn't have to intentionally mentor someone if you'll just pay attention to what he's doing and how he loves the Nationals there, how he carries out his strategy to the unreached, and how he includes churches in reaching the unreached. So it's not just, he's very two-dimensional, if you will, in his approach of working with nationals and churches here in the States. And so learning from him that relationship, that was real monumental in helping us to partner with Grace Church. And just knowing when we send teams, who will be leading them, who will be watching over them, who will be investing in them. I don't know of anyone else that I would trust, not just for safety, but just for the spiritual development and the lives of the short-term team members that are going, than when Mark and his team, because he has a great team, when our teams are under their care.
Yeah. Myself, Ross, and Pastor Justin and his son Nathan had the privilege of going to Niger, and that was really my first time to Niger, but also to spend a lot of time with Mark. And that was maybe, 7-8 months before the team that we're talking about today went. And I'm very thankful that I was able to do that, just because it gave me great confidence of who was there as a local, if you will, with our team as well. So let's get to this trip. So this team of high schoolers, and Ross and Dylan and Tracy as their leaders, they gather up, and because of your connection to Niger, your family, your extended family, has a connection. And so, Ben, tell us a story of the day that the team was about to leave, and something that God sort of put on your mom's heart before they left.
Yeah, so my mom has been to Niger several times, and just really, like myself, has a heart for the peoples of Niger. And so I know that the day before, she texted me and asked me, what time was the team leaving? She said, well, I might come by, but I don't know if I'll be able to. Well, that day that they left, we were here on the church grounds, and everyone was getting ready. In fact, we were about to get into the cars. I think Ross had already given instructions and direction and everything. And then my mom just pulls up and she makes it in time for the prayer. And then the prayer is over. And then she just looked at me and said, hey, can I say something? And yeah, of course. And so I could tell something was on her mind. Like she looked different. Like she looked determined and confident in what she was about to say. And so she shared her heart, and that her past experience in mission trips have been, you have to be fluid, is what we say. You have to roll with the punches, type thing. But what she was saying was probably deeper than that, and that no matter what comes up, no matter what the context is or how that context shifts while you're there in Niger, it could be an opportunity to see God in a clear way. So she encouraged everyone there to look for God. No matter what happens, look for God. And I'm probably fast forwarding through this, but okay. After I got the call, I called my mom and told her, there's a coup, and her first response was, that doesn't shock me, because I knew something was going to happen. And it's just neat that, we can't forget that the Holy Spirit, the same Holy Spirit lives in all of us. And while we send short-term teams there as a church body, God still works in us, whether we go or not. We have a role in praying for them and lifting them up and encouraging them. And I just think that's a neat picture of it, of her being faithful to come on that day and speak that word of truth to our team, because I know that it really, even for me, on this side, is like, okay, no matter what happens, God, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I and Ross had mentioned that several of the students during the course of things unfolding remembered that and said, hey, remember what Miss Teresa said, we got to look for God. I just think that's a beautiful picture. And one thing I don't think you mentioned was that she, not only was she unsure whether she was going to come, she got really close to the church and thought, I'm probably too late.
That's right.
And almost just left.
Right.
And just felt that tug to, no, there's a reason for you to be there, and how beautiful, as you just described. So let's get to it. You fast forward us to where I want us to go, because in other episodes we'll talk about the ministry that was taking place before the coup starts, but for our purposes, we enter the story and the perspective we had once we got that call. Now, Miranda, one of the huge roles that you played was in logistics and transportation. And just for a timeline perspective, when was the team, what were the original tickets? When was the team supposed to return home?
So originally their tickets, they would have returned home on July 29th. So they would have gone Niamey, Paris, Houston, been home. No, right. A flight path we've taken
a lot.
multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah. So that Saturday, you said the 29th, was the original plan. So on Wednesday, prior to those original tickets being purchased, Ben, you get a phone call. Describe where you were and how that phone call hit you in the moment.
Yeah, so it was. I remember it was the morning time. I was actually on my front porch. Actually, I believe I was getting ready to come to work, and I got a call, and it was from Ross, and I knew that it was odd that he would call at that time, and so I had a feeling there was something. And so I answered the phone, and he just said, "Hey, I don't think you've heard, but there's been a coup in Niger." And it didn't really, honestly, I mean, living there, actually, right, I think it was like 3 months before we moved there in 2010, when my family moved there was an attempted coup then, and so it didn't really bother us. We still moved there because, unfortunately, things like this happen in Niger and the surrounding country. So my first thoughts was, okay, everyone's safe. It's not that big of a deal there. Typically, they just ride around the President Palace. They might shoot some guns in the air, and couple days, 2-3 days, everyone lays low for that 2 or 3 days, and then it blows over. In the past, I mean, again, unfortunately, they happen a lot, so there seems to be a pattern. They kind of have it down with what they do. So that, in my mind, that's what I thought was going to happen. I just tried to calm him down, which he wasn't. Ross was fine, and so I thought it would be a 2 or 3 day thing where you lay low and it blow over.
Yeah. So you get that call, and then sometime shortly after that, you give me a call. I also was getting ready for work, and typically when I get a phone call from Ben before work hours, and this particularly in the wintertime, it's because ducks are moving and may need a day for PTO or something. But I've now added one to the list. There's a coup in Africa, and I remember getting that phone call, and again, Ben, you were just sort of, again, matter of fact, and not I could tell you were not overly concerned, but you called and said, "Hey, just want you to know Ross just called.
Welcome to the lead pastor position.
And truly, at that point, the transition, we are less than 6 months into this. And so that definitely, that was one of the first moments, truly, where I felt like, okay, there's nobody else to up the ladder. I've got to make a call here. And so you had asked, what do you want to do? And so I asked, well, let's find out what our options are and see if we can get them out in the next day or two. Let's attempt to do that. So, Miranda, you were tasked with finding that out, and what did you discover?
So what I discovered off the start is, thank the Lord, we had a travel agent. And that's not something that we have typically engaged the services of a travel agent. So I was really grateful to have a professional to go to, because this was a really unusual circumstance. Our missions coordinator, Rachel, it was her first week here. And so
welcome aboard.
This was her first week, her first trip, and she wasn't even here during the planning of it. And so I had to go to Rachel and ask her for the red folder, which is just, it's a folder we have for every trip where it has copies of passports, it has our travel information, our flight numbers, that sort of thing. And so Rachel and I started contacting the travel agent. I think it's Golden Ticket Travel. Patrick and I became very good friends over the week.
Yeah, 5-star review.
He got a lovely care package afterwards. So we started talking to Patrick, and he immediately started researching flight options for us, and there weren't a lot of them.
And by not a lot, there were none.
There were none, yeah.
Yeah, there were none for that Wednesday. And then I want to say they didn't even have any. It's like only every 2 days or something like that, flights were coming or something like that. But there was nothing on Wednesday, nothing on Thursday, something like that.
There was nothing immediately right there. And so our tickets were still, our original ones were for Saturday.
Yes.
They had not officially been canceled yet.
Right.
But there were some flights maybe starting to get canceled, and there was nothing new opening up. There was nothing available then.
So at that point, we knew we don't have an option for that first day, particularly, or really anything in between now and the Saturday.
Right.
Before we go too much further, I do want to just hop in because I think this is part of God's taking care of us and our team. Is you mentioned we normally do not have a travel agent, but we did in this particular case. And I just happen to know that the reason that we did is because we were building our new children's building, trying to get everything ready for VBS in July. This trip is in July. And so in order to purchase the tickets for the team, the only option was to go through a travel agent, because the credit cards at the church did not have enough room on them for that big block of 15 tickets because of everything happening with the kids building, which, praise God, that happened. Amen. Because then we had a professional who is sort of contracted with us to help us walk through that scenario. And so that's how we even got to that point where you could make a quick call and Patrick could get things rolling. Okay, so we find there's no flights out. In fact, on the ground, Mark Phillips called the embassy there in Niger, and the embassy told Mark that at that point, sort of like with Ben, sort of like Ross, sort of like Mark, we got an eye on it, but right now we don't anticipate anything that would cause a problem. Keep your original itinerary, is what they were told. Which that was a great relief, at that point. But now we go into the phase where this is a trip of high schoolers primarily. They've got parents here that need to be informed and talked to, and so Ben, you and Justin, who played the role of not only a discipleship pastor but a parent of one of the children on the trip. Man, that's such a hard call to make, but walk us through, what were you trying to communicate to parents that first day? And that, I know that took you all of or most of the morning and afternoon to personally walk that through, but what were you trying to communicate?
Yeah, the purpose of the phone call was automatically, you can't go through things like this and not put yourself in the place of the parents. And so I just, me and Justin both navigated it. He did have a child there, and I knew that if I had one, I'd want to be informed and not only informed, but offer myself to, hey, call me anytime, and just let them know that if we get any updates, we will pass them right along. So me and Justin, we divided the names in half, and he called half, I called the other half. And overall, I was obviously a little worried because no one wants that phone call.
That's the call you don't want.
No one does. And so, but just a way that the parents receive that information, I did not. I mean, you knew obviously there's a little concern, but man, the conversations overall went well, and I was encouraged personally by those phone calls, in that I could tell it was like a mental gripping of some of those parents in their faith of God but I know who has them, even though we don't have control, we can't, they're 2,000 miles away, as a crow flies probably. But yeah, that was encouraging to me. And from that point on, that opened up the door of communication between me and Justin and the parents. The people that we called, we kept in touch with throughout the remainder of the trip. And sometimes it was more so than others.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is that when the group chat started also?
I can't remember.
It would have formed very quickly
because
after
that was such a good source of community during the whole process of the parents sending prayers or sending prayer requests or whatever, and just seeing that support amongst, to me, I mean, it was parents, it was staff spouses, and then there were staff members in there as well, of just the back and forth of seeing what the Lord was doing in Africa and what he was doing here at the same time. Like, it was really beautiful to see everybody get to know each other and see the Lord move in that way of, like, we talk about our values together in the faith.
Yeah.
And we typically see that like in life groups and stuff, but to see it in such a broader section of the church body, like it was really, really beautiful. It was nice to see.
Yeah. And I will just say, post this entire thing, the parents just consistently shared how much the support of the church, which what they were talking about was those phone calls and that availability really meant in helping them navigate. And so, again, behind the scenes, but a critical role. So the calendar turns to Thursday. We've made these phone calls. We feel like, okay, let's sort of hope for Saturday. Things sort of follow the playbook, but it was not what we had hoped. The airport's closed. So the new regime, to flex their sort of authority, they shut down the borders, including the airports. And so now our flights are in jeopardy. They're not canceled quite yet.
Right.
But we are anticipating that is going to be the case. And so as that happens, though, there is this reality that begins to take place where the rest of the world starts paying attention on news feeds, including people in Lufkin, including families, including us even. And then we're hearing from Mark and the team, their perspective. Then and that's drastically different views of what the world news is reporting and what Mark is reporting. Share a little bit about what was happening at that time, the two types of reports that we were hearing.
Yeah, so on the ground, I kept in contact with Mark, and he was telling me what I expected was that, we're still at that normal phase of a coup. This does happen. Airports do shut down. And so I was like, okay, and I'd heard of that, and he's normally 2 or 3 days. I said, okay, well then, what's it like driving around? Is there fear in the air? And he said, man, there's nothing. You wouldn't even know that anything happened. You can still go to the market. You can still shop. You can get gas. You can get money. I mean, you can get the day-to-day at this point. I mean, it hadn't changed. And so, again, that is from this side, like normally if I had been there, I would be, okay, yeah, this is normal. But you still have that in the back of your mind going, how much is this gonna tick upwards, And so, but I rarely let my mind go there, so I didn't, and I just said, you know what, I felt like we were still on pace for this to blow over, and the max 3 days.
Yeah.
Turns out I was wrong.
So we've got, media sensationalizing, they've got reports of gunfire and, buildings being burned. And what Mark has got going is, as missionaries, there is a network of other missionaries throughout the entire city. And so the reports coming back from the network of not just where Mark was, but from all of Niamey was what?
Okay, I didn't realize at that point that stuff had started happening, but I guess it did, right?
Yeah, at least over that weekend.
The weekend it definitely did. And so, what happens is oftentimes is the media will take a picture of one event.
Yeah.
In a smaller smaller area. It might be very small. It's the same, like in my mind, I think of it as the weather people, like there's a tornado and they act like the wind's blowing and then there's people walking in the background, like there's nothing wrong. It kind of gives that effect, right? Is that, they will corner an isolated event and then they will make a big news story about it when the majority of the population in Niger was not experiencing what that small segment, very small segment, and was experiencing in Niger. And I get it. So you have kids over there, it's hard to know. Ross from the ground is telling me this, and through Ben they're sharing this, but the news is telling me all of this. And so it gets hard to, what is actually going on there? And so that's why we have, that is the big blessing that we had in the Phillips family and his team, is that we knew we had a solid source. He was not going to put the team in danger. He had solid local contacts and where he's networked there very well. And so that's what I was relying on was that news feed on the ground, what's actually happening.
But I remember the world news and the national coverage, if you read an article or two, it did seem frightening or intimidating. Yeah. But if you read 3 or 4 of them, you realize they're recycling the same. It's just like you said, it's the same instance that they're all reporting on over and over again, and that you can get that sense of it's being sensationalized, it's being recycled and reported the same event over and over again, and you get that reassurance of trusting your sources and knowing that it's a lot more calm on the ground than what is exciting news, maybe.
Yeah, and just from, I guess technically this is geography, but Ben, describe our kids, where they were staying, which added actually another layer of comfort about their safety, about where, describe just very briefly where they were staying and in relationship to where they were to the U.S. Embassy, for instance.
Okay, yeah, so they were staying on a road in Niger, or in Niamey, the capital of Niger, that is called Embassy Row. And so that's where all of the embassies will be located in the capital there in Niamey. And so the IMB has a compound there on that road, and their compound is probably, I would say, 500 yards. I mean, it is not far. It's kind of catty-cornered a little ways, but it's very close. They were very close to the U.S. Embassy the entire time that they were at the IMB grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those, go ahead, Maria.
But I feel like compound is almost a militant word in America. In English, compound sounds very militant. But in international areas, you say compound, it's just a gated facility. Yeah. I mean, it's a gated facility. There is a security guard, but it's some apartment buildings and then one building where it's almost a small hotel. But it's not a militant thing. Right. It's not like a heavy armed facility.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's
secure, but it's
secure.
Not.
It's got the river on the back. It's got walls all around, including on the riverside, and then the guard there at the front. So that gave us a lot of comfort. I mean, if anything went down, they could literally run across the street and get into the U.S. Embassy. So where are we at this point? So we're going into the weekend. The airports are closed. Our original flights, we're likely not going to make that as we're heading into the weekend. So Miranda, what was our next phase of trying to make this happen?
So we started looking for flights. When we were told the airport was going to be closed through the 4th, and we started looking for what are our next options. And Patrick, again, was able to find a flight going out on the 30th. So that would be one day after our original flights. And it was going to go like Niamey to Casablanca and then to Amsterdam and then Chicago and then back to, like, it was a very roundabout way of getting them back home. And it was one day after the original flight. I think because the time changed, like they would get home 2 days after they were supposed to return. So we did go ahead and book that. We knew it was kind of a long shot, but we were making every effort to make sure that if there was a shot, we were going to get the students and the adults home as quickly and safely as we could.
And we were able on that particular flight to get everybody in one flight, not divided.
Right. Yes, that was everybody on one flight because that was a worry of getting people. Just international travel is hard.
Yeah.
With minors in particular, you want to be mindful, and that was everybody on one flight together.
Now, was that the flight where there were some in first class in order to get them? Or
no.
have we not even gotten to that part
We
yet?
haven't gotten there. So we booked those flights, just a brand new one-way tickets.
Gotcha.
It was on 2 legs. The very next day after we booked them, I got to the office with the email from Patrick saying, hey, those flights have been canceled.
Gotcha.
Which kind of worked out in our favor because then that meant also as soon as they were canceled, it had been 24 hours. So those reimbursements were just automatic. We didn't have to reapply for them, that sort of thing. But then we started looking at our original flights were canceled, which meant we could rebook them as well. And so we had 2 options for them, and it was either leave on August the 7th. And doing that, we had to have 6 economy seats, and I think they had 6 business class seats. Those were going to be like an extra $3,400 a person.
A person, yes.
A person, 34. So it was like $20,000.
Yes.
But the alternative was like all 12 economy seats on a flight that left out, I think, on the 12th.
Right.
Which is well beyond when they're supposed to be getting home. We have kids who are supposed to be starting college. Like parents whose kids are starting school.
Plus an unknown situation that we don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. So we opted for the 7th. We paid for the 6 business class seats, and Patrick just monitored them. By the end of the day, we had 3 business class seats and 9 economy seats, which was incredible.
I mean, $10,000 savings.
Yeah, half the savings.
Right there.
Yeah. So we had them rebooked for August 7th, and they were going to go Niamey, Paris, Detroit, back to Houston. So a whole new flight path all over again. And that was kind of where we stood for a minute. That was just that was the plan.
So that was probably like on a Friday or
that
Saturday.
That was through the weekend, Friday.
And so Miranda calls Ben and I and laying out the options and here's what it's going to cost. And we made the decision. We just got to get them as early and as all together as we can. And so we made that decision, but knowing that it could be potentially $20,000 over what we had originally paid. And then as Patrick was moving it, that's when we made the decision, we're just going to take up an offering on that Sunday morning. And we ended up, I think that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,500 to $7,000, $6,500 to $7,000. And then by the end of Patrick's doing, it was already shaved down to about 10. And then not to jump too far ahead, didn't even matter because we didn't those weren't going to make it either. But so one of the really fun parts of this story to me was how hard this group was trying to think outside the box of how do we get this team home. And I remember being in the office, and oddly enough, there's a couple of loose connections to the Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy. And we just happened to know through some recent stories that he had a plane that could accommodate. And so I just joked, we just need to have so-and-so call up the MyPillow guy, and let's make this thing happen. And I'm saying it in jest, but this guy gets it in his eye to say, let's give this a go. So Ben,
in my mind, there would have been nothing more epic than Ross and his team to walk on the MyPillow airplane at the Niger airport. And so I just had that mental picture. Yes. And so as I often do, I will bite onto things, and it's like I will I'm going to see that this happens until the door is absolutely closed. And so I reached out to a couple of people that I know that had connections there. One of them kind of seemed promising, like, hey, this contact agrees. Like, dude, I think there's a chance. I mean, in my mind, it was a done deal. My pillow guy was in the airplane. My pillow mobile was going to Niger, but unfortunately, it did not happen. But it was a heartbreaker for me.
We got farther down that path than I thought we would.
Yeah, we did.
It really came down to pilots not being licensed to fly the international routes. Is
yeah,
really
that was the start of it that shut us down. Yeah, who knew? That
had that happened, we might have had a sermon sponsored by My Pillow as a thank you for a few weeks at least. But
there is no telling what all would have come with that.
So that just goes to show. I mean, truly any stone that can be turned over. We were looking for ways to try to get this team back. So on Saturday the 29th, which was the day they were originally supposed to come home, I just needed to get out of town. So I went up to like the Tyler area just to do some shopping, look around, just get out of town. Like we've had so many days of just up and down. And on my way home, I got 2 phone calls. One was from Ross, asking if they could go to church the next day, which to leave the compound and that area and to travel, I probably 15 minutes across town to the church. Is that about?
It's probably about 30.
About 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So to travel about 30 minutes across town to go to church.
It would actually be out of town. So
okay,
it was
so even
through the town. Yeah.
Okay, so on the outskirt of even, and so, but I just had this sense. I believe it was from the Holy Spirit that, man, we've sent them over there. What are we communicating if we don't let them go and worship with this church that we've partnered with? Because those believers are going to be gathering, and the report what we've heard is everything's normal. People are buying and selling, going about their business. And so I told Ross, unless Mark feels like there is a change that would change this, I'll leave that in his hand. You guys can go to worship. And so I have that phone call, and then a little bit later, I get a phone call, and my caller ID says, what did it say? Like Capital Hill, something like that. I thought, I ought to probably answer this. And so Congressman Pete Sessions was on the phone, and it wasn't even one of his aides. It was Pete himself, and that was largely a thank to one of our church members, Mark Hicks, our mayor, who had reached out to his contacts, just making sure that all the governmental diplomatic channels are working as hard as they can as well. And so Pete calls me and says, or Congressman Sessions calls me and says, look, we know where your team is, give us a status, what's going on. They had, Senator Cruz's office had reached out to Mark on the ground. So there were things happening from their end where they were letting us know we're going to be doing everything we can. They were going to release a press release, just giving us a heads up on that. And so we just sort of, he gave me contact information so that we could keep them updated. They would keep us updated. That ends up being a really key moment in the story of how not just our U.S. government, but how God, through our U.S. government, is beginning to answer some prayers. And so that Sunday morning, so Ross and the team, they go to worship. And it's at that morning while they're at worship is where things begin to take a turn off the normal playbook for a West African coup. There are protests outside of the French embassy. And that actually was dispersed with some tear gas. And so Ben described for us, because I think this is really neat. Ross calls, I feel like the Holy Spirit, yes, y'all can go to worship. So they were 30 minutes away. Where was this protest happening just in relationship to the compound and the U.S. Embassy?
Yeah, so that would be, as I mentioned, it's right across, like catty-cornered, the embassy. and the next embassy is the French embassy. And so it would have been a quarter of a mile, if that, from where they were at. I mean, had they been there, they would have no doubt heard what was going on and would have seen the tear gas, smelled it all. They would have known something. An event was going on right outside the gate.
They would have been safe.
They would have been safe,
but
course,
they would have been very much near this activity.
Because at no point were they targeting
Americans.
So they would have just known that something was an event was taking place. Right.
Yeah. So my understanding is that one of the reasons that was a key moment of pivot for the region was that Niger is sort of got a French background because of colonization and that sort of thing. And so this was a rebellion against the largest sort of governing body there, which is the French. And then y'all got to get, we want French Europeans to leave. That's where things started to escalate to that next step. And so as we're walking through that, now we're coming into the next week. So the kids actually had a great day of worship at the church. They even stayed and did some ministry within the church. Again, I'll even use the word compound. It's walled. It's got somebody outside the door. But with kids and with the families, they come back. Monday, communication's already a little bit of a challenge overseas. There's typically even a delay when someone talks of 20, 30 seconds before it, so you're talking over each other. Well, now the Wi-Fi has gone down on Monday. And no known reason, but you don't know if that's somebody's cutting, internet services as part of the coup or just a weird thing that's happening. But one of the saving graces through this entire thing was families being able to communicate via text and FaceTime with their kids, and now there's no Wi-Fi. And so we're in Monday. Families are at a little bit of a low because there's difficulty. Our church has begun having prayer meetings Sunday evening, Monday evening, over the families, with the families, for the people, for our team, for the people of Niger. So then we come into Tuesday. So there's been a little bit of a downer with everybody because communication's down. Tuesday, things start moving and shaking. It sort of feels like it's going to be a normal day, but Ben, you get a call from Mark on Tuesday morning, sort of indicating, hey, let's be on the look. Like some things are happening. Talk a little bit about what he's communicating.
Yeah, he just mentioned that. I believe that was the morning where he said, I got a call from whether it's the embassy or one of his contacts that said, I really feel like that there's going to be a spot open for your team within 24 to 48 hours. And so they'll do this from time to time. And so they let the team know just to maybe pack your bags, start thinking about packing. There might be a light at the end of this tunnel in 24 to 48 hours.
Weren't they going to get potato sacks? It was something about like the luggage, how much they could take with them.
Yeah, I forgot about that. They were because that's right. They were because they were not. I think
no checked bags
in the past, right? Yeah, they wouldn't let them check bags, and so Mark went. I don't know, went shopping for.
I think he went to the market.
Yeah, for like the tater sacks, so they could put their
stuff as much as they could.
Yeah. So I don't think it came to that, but
So it was that very morning, you get the call, hey, 24, 48 hours, maybe something's going to open up. Because at this time, our tickets are now for this August
6th, I think.
6th. And this particular day is probably like Monday the 31st or something like that.
This is when like you were talking about the parents being back, like the kids are supposed to be home. They're supposed to kind of
they
be
were
here.
already
hit that. Yeah,
absolutely.
We're delayed officially.
School, I think, was going to be starting in the next couple of days, maybe on that Wednesday or Thursday for many of them. And so, Ben, you come in. We have a normal meeting with our senior sort of team. At that time, it was on Tuesday mornings. So you come in with the update. Hey, just letting y'all know, 24, 48 hours. So we're talking a little bit about that. And then while we're even talking about that, even celebrating that, Mark gives you another call. And what was the nature of that call?
That one was change of plans. The Italian embassy has opened up spots for your team. They have to be there within 10, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. It was a very tight time frame.
It was like, we've got to be there in 10 or 15 minutes. And I could hear, like, in the background, doors were shutting, and he was getting, I'm sure his kids were, like, just yelling behind him, and he was just in go mode. And so he was headed to because he lives right by the IMB compound where they're staying. So he can be there literally within 1 minute. And so he was headed that way to inform the team. And it did not feel like more than 5 minutes since he called me with like 24 to 48. We're leaving in 15 minutes. And so, yeah, it was a definite turn of events really fast.
Yeah, so it really felt like for us, at least for me, it felt like one of those scenes like in a presidential war room where there's everybody hunched over a desk, people on phones, barking out because we crashed into Ben's office. He's trying to compose a text to the families so that they can hear this immediate. And then Ross calls right as you're sending out, trying to compose the first text. Ross calls, and I liken it to those old commercials for 1-800-COLLECT. It's a baby, it's a boy.
Had a baby,
because
it's a boy.
He calls, Ben picks up the phone, and again, that sense of urgency, Ross is saying, we've got to get out the door right now. I don't know what's going to happen as far as cell service. Got to go. It was just like, okay, so we just start, we send out a message to parents. Then we're sort of all the next hour, particularly just waiting for bits of information of, have they gotten to the Italian military base? Have they cleared this? And so they sort of had to hurry up to go and wait for an extended period of time. We're sort of waiting. And then at some point during the day, Congressman Sessions' office calls us again, or either we reached out to make sure we were all on the same page with it, and then he communicates to us that we need to help with some of the arrangements once they land in Rome. And so I'm going to ask you to describe two things, Miranda, just sort of that part of, oh my goodness, we've got to figure this next thing out, but also one piece of this puzzle we haven't talked about on any of the episodes is the overall communication plan from the church. And at this point, we are given instructions about our communication plan from the U.S. government. But just talk a little bit about our overall communications plan up to and through that moment, and then what logistical plans came about from that call.
Sure. So we started off, pretty early on, we were getting calls from local media just wanting a statement. They're hearing what's going on, seeing on social media, and they just want a general statement. And not wanting to endanger the team, not really knowing the atmosphere, not wanting to really bring more attention to it unnecessarily. We had a pretty basic statement of, yes, we have a team of students and adults in Niger. Everybody's doing well. Thank you for your concern. It was just a very basic statement. As we started to field more and more calls, Charles Roberts and our Tech Arts team kind of took over that, and he was fielding a lot of those. What was local quickly became statewide and then national, and I think maybe even a few international publications, newspapers, online outlets were contacting him regularly. And so he was continuing to give that statement of, thank you for your concern. It was a very thank you, no comment kind of comment. And then, as you said, Pete Sessions' office asked us, hey, this is now the government is involved, not only the American government, but the Italian government. And so this is a very delicate situation. Please be so mindful of how you're communicating this. And then we did have some instances. We have 12 teenagers with all of the information.
Yes.
And so there was some kind of trying to manage as well what they're sharing with extended family members, within friend groups, that sort of thing, and just trying to maintain a level that they have the freedom and anonymity to talk about their experience without putting anyone in danger or causing more complications in the situation. So it was, I think, a new experience for us in a lot of ways, and it was very interesting to manage that and see kind of from both angles how it's handled.
Yeah, I do want to just say a big thank you to Charles for handling that, because not all news outlets, they got a job to do, and he had to, with great consistency, we'll say, to refuse, because from our perspective, we didn't want any information that would allow bad characters in the region to know where our team was, or that we even had a team there if they didn't already know. And then, as you said, the U.S. government essentially said, please don't communicate so that you do not jeopardize, and his word, this mission. And so it was, okay, we're not going to say anything. And so then talk to us about then the logistical plans and how they shifted once again.
So we were back with Patrick and just trying to figure out because it was such a short turnaround of, we knew they were on the way to the embassy. We didn't know exactly when they were leaving, what they'd be taking off. But somewhere throughout the day, we got a vague time of when they'd be in Rome. And so we knew that it would be late at night. Our best hope would be next day tickets. And so we just started looking for what those options were. And just through some back and forth, Patrick found us tickets from Washington to Houston. It's pretty straightforward. I think the team also had with them one of the Access team members as well. It's a single lady. I think throughout this, it's important to remember that the Phillips family was also making their own preparations and discernment, not just for themselves, but their team members as well. And they did such a commendable job of caring for our students, and that responsibility in our partnership of just putting their needs ahead of even their own family's needs, their partners' needs, their national friends that they would potentially be leaving behind. I think we were all honored really well by how they did that. And so we, with our team, and then with the one member of their team, we were able to get them flights booked. And then we had to also book hotels in Rome, I think again in Washington as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That
was for the Phillips.
Yeah. Okay, so we got them hotels in Rome, and then we were back and forth on this. So as you mentioned, the church credit cards are just in a strange position with the
kids building.
And so our team is now, they packed their bags with wet laundry in the bags.
Yes.
Cell phones not charged, and then actually even ended up leaving their bags at the airport. They were all separated from their bags. And so we had to, at the same time, start this communication of, can they check into the hotel without the credit card on file? And how are they going to get clean clothes? So we're talking to spouses, to parents on the team saying, hey, who has a credit card? What's the Venmo situation? Like, how can we make sure they're getting clean clothes, food, meals for this interim period?
But it did shift in that day, because the consulate in Rome at first made it out to be like, hey, we're going to get them there. The team will be taken care of. We will make sure they have a place to stay, all of this. And I know it happens so fast, right?
Yes.
I mean, the whole information, but it just kind of shifted throughout the day where we understood that we needed to find them room and transportation and all that, which was fine. It because of Miranda's hard work and Patrick's, it worked out. So that whole day was learning what all needed to be done, and then adjusting on the fly. So
and you were getting phone calls from the embassy in Rome even late into our night, were you not?
Oh yeah. They were. I talked to them most of the day that day.
Yeah.
And I think we were both trying to figure out
who's responsible,
what to expect once they get on the ground. But it was. I was on the phone most all of that day. Yeah.
But their team again did a really commendable job. They took responsibility. They met our team at the hotel and got them to met them at the airport, and then got them to the hotel or the second airport to check into their flights. So I mean, they did a great job.
They did amazing.
They did. It was a huge help.
And I would say, even at this point, before we even jump just to the last little bit of this episode, to just mention a couple of things. I can't get over that God used an Italian military vehicle, cargo plane with. I mean, it's sort of, from the pictures, it looks like a normal airliner, but it's a cargo plane retrofitted in that way. to bring our team home. That to me was just that perfect balance of, we went to the Lord in prayer. We've been asking him for his plan to do it in a way that he would get glory. And of all the flights you and Patrick put together, and quite literally the tens of thousands of dollars that were spent and refunded and respent and hanging out there, all of that, it ends up being, this vessel from even another country in partnership. And it goes back to Mark Hicks calling the representatives. Those representatives, again, politicians get a bad rap, and for some of it they deserve it maybe. But in this case, Cruz and Sessions were truly worried about their constituents, and they did what was in their control to make sure that this amazing thing God just sort of orchestrates to bring them home. And they even get home before our last set of tickets. And then the airport was not even open on that day. So those tickets end up getting canceled. And so of all the money thrown around and all the money we raised, it ended up being almost a break even, especially when you count the money raised for the extra time. God's faithfulness and all that was just incredible to me. And I don't want to just fly by that.
No, not at all.
Because that can get lost a little bit in the story. The other thing that happened is, as I mentioned, we were having those prayer meetings. And so on this Tuesday, again, family and friends know that the team is hopefully about to board, but it's taking a long time. This started in the morning, hurry up and wait. And by our 6 o'clock prayer meeting, just moments up to it, we had not gotten an official word that they had actually taken off. And our meeting was scheduled to start at 6 p.m. every night until they got home. And at 6 p.m., on the dot, I got a text right as I was walking up to the podium from Pete Sessions' office. Just got word, team is in the air. And so we gather and we pray, and at the exact moment that we're getting together to pray, the team is in the air on the way to Rome. It's just amazing what God did. And as we think about this entire story, we're wrapping up here. Any other just personal reflections that you have from the seat you got to sit in watching God orchestrate this in the lives of our families, our church, and even our lives? Any additional thoughts or reflections you have? Ben, I'll start with you if you have one.
Yeah, I probably process this a little different than the actual trip, because I kind of just with the perspective of living there and also serving as an elder here, as shepherding the church well, looking at it from what is God doing there in Niger and our partnership to that. You were talking about how the prayer meeting or the Italian plane, and how it's just like it could sound like a bunch of coincidences, right?
Right.
But I was actually at the gym this morning talking to my buddy about that. There are no coincidences, and we were talking about how God moves in those little things, and it's just how that happened to get our team. God is orchestrating those events that our students got to be a part of to move his mission forward. And so I think I was trying not to shortstop the perspective of God's mission unfolding just in the lives of our students there on the ground, but it's still going on. And so my prayer for this church is just we are almost at a stop sign to go, what are we going to do next, right? So I think one of the dangers in this is that we can bite that lure that Satan throws at us that tells us that our comfort, that our desire to escape danger is more important than making God's name known. And we can, if we bite that just because of these events, then we're no different than the persecution around the world, because the persecution around the world, their goal is to make sure that Christ's name is not proclaimed. And so it has really, in my prayer life for our church, I'm praying that we have the heart and the eyes to see in a kingdom perspective that doesn't say, wow, we barely escaped or pulled our teenagers out of danger, but no, to look at it and go, wow, Jesus was right. He does care more about his glory than our safety, and that's actually not the point. It is, yes, if we go, God will watch over us. He will protect us. He will lead us. But it doesn't mean it might not always end like that. That's a sobering reality.
It is.
But it just, my mind goes back to that, the Philippians 2, the way that Jesus came to this earth and what he did to come for me. And then at the end of his life, he told Peter, just as I'm sending you, just as my Father has sent me, I'm sending you. So it's a crossroad to me. Like, how will our church respond? I believe that we will continue to sin. There's not a doubt in my mind. But it does. It makes you step back and count the cost.
Yeah.
And praise God, it worked out like this. But it just, to me, I've learned to keep praying. Pray for the nations. Know that God is still on the move, not only in Niger, but all the way around the world. And that his main tool to move his mission forward is his church, equipped by the Holy Spirit. And so I look forward to other mission trips that we see, that God allows us to go on. And I know that our church will remain obedient and faithful to that. And it's a sweet story of his faithfulness, but it doesn't stop at our kids coming home. We still get to be a part of it. And I'm excited about that part as well.
Amen, brother. Miranda, what about you? What sort of reflections have you had?
I think it was very affirming. We talk about Harmony Hill being very missionally minded, and even looking at our staff, like we have a strange percentage of staff members who have served internationally. But seeing the parents through this, seeing the church's reaction of course there's concern and worry whenever you have children, students in a place where there's potential harm and danger to them. But our care didn't stop there. Like when our students were off the ground, that parent group kept going with, hey, how's the Phillips family? Where are they at? How are they doing? What can we do for them? And even weeks later, as the Phillips family is back in the States, how are they settling in? How can we reach out to them? How can we pray for them? And just seeing the way that the Lord used that and how they were so intentional to care for our students and return, strengthen that relationship of our church body with their family. The importance of having that tether to your churches, you can't overstate the meaningfulness of that. And so as we know, they've just kind of returned to Niger, and this podcast will be coming out, just seeing how the Lord's going to continue to use that story in the lives of the students, in the lives of the Phillips and the ministry that's going on there. I have great confidence that God is just going to continue to strengthen that relationship. And I think just one of the funniest things coming out of it to me, so we met the students at the airport, and it was after this week of crazy hecticness. So I rode with Melissa Stokes and Ben up to the airport, and we got caught in traffic, and literally Ben dropped Melissa and I off at a parking garage, and we were like running. We walked up to the group as soon as they start cheering and the students are on the escalator. Like, you couldn't have timed it any better. And so it was just like this pivotal moment to be there for their homecoming, and to see, as mom was reunited with her child and just wrap her arms around them, to see parents who missed children who missed their parents, and to see those reunions and just see how the Lord truly protected, looked out for them, watched over them. But Melissa and I, so we got separated from Ben, and we rode out with one of the families, and I was talking to their student, and I said, so how was it over there for y'all? Did y'all have any kind of gauge or any temperature for what it was like over here? And he said, what do you mean? What was going on? He was dead serious.
Yeah.
What was going on? What was happening here? Oh, you mean like with us being over there, getting stuck over there? He had no clue. And so I think, even out of the Lord protecting their heart he wasn't deterred. He was ready. He was ready to talk about it, and he was ready to do what the Lord has next for him. It's just exciting to see how the Lord's moving generationally throughout Harmony Hill, and just how he's going to inspire those relationships and continue that work in the harvest. It excites me.
Very good. Well, thank you both for telling your part of the story and giving God glory for it. Thank you for watching this episode of the Harvest Podcast, a missions podcast of Harmony Hill. Please do all the things: like, share, subscribe. Help us beat the algorithm so that more people can hear the story of what God did through our Niger mission team. Thank you for watching or listening, and I look forward to seeing you the next time you're on the Hill.